And thanks everybody for taking time out of their busy schedule today to learn a bit more about Qglobal and the administrative access that you will have as an administrator. Now, before we get into the content, I always like to take a few moments and review what we're going to cover in today's webinar. Now, we're actually going to start with discussing how to manage your account and reviewing how to add users and, of course, general account organization and management. Next, we're actually going to navigate to the account details page and take a look at a few of the different ways in which you can customize your account, such as changing display settings as well as utilizing the Examinee custom fields. Now, while we're on the account details, we're going to jump to the inventory tab and talk about setting low inventory notifications for your upcoming subscription expirations, as well as your low usage threshold. We're going to look at allocating inventory at the asset, subscription, and user level. And then we're going to navigate to the Users tab and talk about user management, how to resend the welcome email, and of course, how to manage inventory at the user level. We're also going to talk about a relatively new feature called Administrative Reports, which will actually allow you to generate a history of all the time subscriptions were used or usages were used to generate a report. Now, after we've spent a lot of time on the account details page, we're going to navigate right back to the home page and talk about a bit more of customization that you can do utilizing those Examinee display settings and those Examinee custom fields. Now, in just a moment, I'm actually going to share my screen, and we're going to do a live demo or a live walkthrough of the system so you guys can see exactly what it's going to look like as you go through and try some of these features. Now, I'm actually going to share my screen really quick, so just give me 1 second. And you should see Qglobal logged in right now on my desktop screen. Now, in the reminder email that was sent out today, and it looks a little something like this, there is actually a handout in this download files category right here. And that is going to contain a number of slides with additional information that I'm going to cover, as well as screenshots going through the process. So if you did receive this email earlier, it should have been sent out about 15 minutes prior to when we started. Right here is going to be a download for the handout. All right, so when we're talking about administrative access, and what I'm going to do is actually minimize this. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Hopefully that helps you guys see things a bit easier. But when we're talking about administrative access, a majority of the features are going to take place behind this Manage Accounts link. And users who have at least one administrative privilege, so if you're an account owner, account administrator, or maybe you have a custom role that has been given some administrative access, you're going to see this Manage Accounts link right here. And when we do click on the Manage Accounts link, the Manage Accounts page is going to detail your account structure. And at the moment, as soon as you navigate there, it's represented by your main account. I like to think of it as your organization. Now, of course, the organization right here can be expanded by clicking on the plus symbol, and this is going to show us all of the users and all of the sub-accounts within your organization. Now, when we're talking about account structure, the main thing we're talking about is privacy or visibility within the system. And that has to relate to how you want, or I should say what you want individuals to see within your account. And what I mean by this is data within Qglobal is saved to the account that you log into. So if I have 4 users within my main account who are all logging into the Jarrett's Training account, they're going to be able to see each other's data because they're all logging into the same account. A good example would be if we have a room within a building, everybody is depositing physical files within the same room. They're all navigating into the room, maybe with their own set of keys, being their username and password, but it's all in the same location, so they'd all be able to see that data. Now, within Qglobal, we can actually create something called a sub-account. And I like to think of it as an account within an account or a folder within a folder, like you might have on your desktop or laptop computer. And a sub-account is, again, simply a new account that falls under your main organization. And these are all examples of sub-accounts I have right here. Now, the reason why we might want to create a sub-account is that if we only have one user within each sub-account, they're only going to see their own data. And a great example is going to be the Brooks School right here, where I only have Terry Brooks as a user. So when Terry himself logs in, he's logging directly into the Brooks School sub-account, and he's only going to be able to see his own data because he's the only one saving data to this specific account. Now, of course, the exception to this rule of Terry only seeing his data would be if you are an administrator at a higher level, like Jared is right here. Because he's an account owner at the highest level, he'd be able to have a top-down approach and be able to see all the data on the accounts. So let's say you're a school district and you want to make sure that each school psychologist only sees their own data. What you'd want to do is simply create a new sub-account for each individual. Maybe you have a bit more structure to your organization. You have a school district, you have a number of schools, but you also have regional managers, and you want to make sure that the regional managers can still manage those schools that fall under them within the district. If that's the case, you can create a multi-tiered approach. So, for example, I have my Tolkien school right here, and we can see that within the Tolkien school itself, we can have additional sub-accounts. So utilizing this feature really does allow you to closely mirror your organization within the system. So if there's managers, individuals only need to see their own data, it gives you that ability. Now let's actually go through and talk about creating a sub-account itself, because we'd actually do that right here on this page. So for example, if I wanted to create a new sub-account, what I'm going to do is start by clicking the New Account button. Now, clicking the New Account button does bring up the New Account window, which is going to prompt me to enter in the account details for this account, as well as the main contact information. Now, the first thing that we're going to want to do is start on the left-hand side and select the account that we want this new sub-account to fall under. And we simply designate that as the parent account. So what I'm going to do is click on this button with the three dots, and we're going to see my account hierarchy window appear. Now, again, we can make as many tiers as we want, but if I only want one individual per sub-account, again, to have that level of privacy, I'm just going to select the main contact or the main organization right here. So again, I'm simply going to click on where I want the sub-account to fall under. That account is going to appear right here. And we're going to navigate down to the next row and indicate a name for this sub-account. So if I'm just creating one for each individual, maybe I just want to give it the name of the individual. So let's just say John Demo Account. After that, what I'm going to want to do is jump over to the right-hand side and select the main contact information. And primarily, the main contact is going to be the sole user of that account. And if John Demo is the only user, I'm simply going to enter in John Demo. And I'm just going to give him my fake phone number, and I'm going to give him my email address. Now, we even have display settings and Examinee custom fields within this window. And what the display settings do is that whenever a user logs in, by default, the terms are going to be examinee for the individual who will be taking the assessment, and examiner for the one administering the assessment. Now, if you're part of a school organization, maybe instead of examinee, you prefer the term student. So you can do that. You can simply type in student right here, and every time you currently would see examinee, it's going to be replaced with student. Same thing with examiner. If you prefer school psychologist or administrator, you could change that as well. Now, we also have examinee custom fields. And for those familiar with the assessment process, such as creating examinee profiles, and again, accessing those profiles, we're going to notice that each examinee profile actually has 4 custom fields within it. And these are simply 4 additional rows for you to type in organization-specific information. So maybe you are part of a school district, and you want to know right away when the profile is created which school and grade the individual is part of. We could have that right here. So by simply renaming that custom field, it would simply appear as school and grade when we were to create a profile and save it. So it's just a cosmetic change for the display settings and the examinee custom fields, but again, it allows you to customize it a bit more to fit your organization. Now, after all this information has been entered, we're going to click the Save button, and that's going to save the sub-account to our account structure, adding the main contact right here as that first user. And it's actually going to send a welcome email directly to the individual. So now my John Demo will receive that welcome email. prompting him to activate his username and password, and he'll be able to gain access to his account. So right here. So again, that's one way we can add a user, by creating a sub-account for them, listing them as the main contact. And again, sub-accounts as a whole are a great way to provide a bit of structure to your organization within the system. And again, if privacy is a factor, creating an individual sub-account for each user will allow them to only see the data that they've entered, because they're the only one logging in to their specific sub-account. Now, while we're on the Manage Accounts page, we can actually look at the account details and manage inventory for the account specific and even manage users. Now, regardless of whether or not you want to navigate to the account details page for the main account or for one of these sub-accounts, what we're going to do is simply find the account, again, as demonstrated by the planet Earth symbol to the left of it, and we're simply going to click on it. So I'm just going to click on Jarrett's Training, and this is actually going to navigate me to the account details page for the Jarrett's Training account. Now, the account details page itself is comprised of these core 6 tabs, ranging from details to administrative reports. Now, spending about 5 to 6 seconds on each one, the details tab simply tells us our account details, such as the account number, name, as well as the main contact. So in this case, this is the account owner. That's myself, Jarrett. Portfolios and assessments, this is simply going to let you know all of the assessments that are available to you based on your license. And as all Qglobal users currently have the same license, our Qglobal Premium license, you're going to see all of the assessments available. Now, inventory, this is a location in which you can manage all the inventory on the account. So you'll be able to manage all the account assets, subscriptions, and usages to all the users, again, who are within that account. And if we're looking at the main account, like I am right now, all the users within the organization who have been added. Now, the Users tab itself is going to allow me to manage users, and this will allow me to create users and add them to an existing account, like I could add them to my John Demo account, as well as manage inventory at the user level and resend that welcome email, just in case somebody doesn't receive it. The Consent Builder is used for the group administration feature, and this would allow you to have a digital version of your consent form before one of the proctored assessments. So it's a great way of incorporating all that information right within the system. And, of course, the administrative reports, which would allow you to generate that detailed history of every time a subscription was used to generate a report, or when one of your individual report usages were used to generate a report. Now, for today, we're going to focus on the Details tab, Inventory, Users, and Administrative Reports, because this is where you guys are going to be spending a majority of your time when managing your account. Now, just because we're not talking about the portfolios and assessments and Consent Builder, again, does not mean they're not important, but just in terms of time, those are the 4 we're going to focus on today. Now, the Details tab itself, we're going to notice, looks very similar to the new account window that we saw when we added the account information as well as the main contact information. And again, this is the information that's generated when your account, when the main account is first created. And you do have the ability to edit this. So for example, I can click on the Edit button, and we're going to notice that I have a few fields I can edit, primarily the display settings and those Examinee custom fields. Now, the neat thing about editing the display settings and the Examinee custom fields right here on the account details page is that if I edit them at the main level, so again, right here in Jarrett's Training, and then I was to create a sub-account indicating that my main account is the parent, it's actually going to copy these presets to that sub-account. And we actually saw that when I created the John Demo account, sub-account, it copied the school and grade. So I highly recommend that if as a new account owner and you haven't had a chance to create your account yet, maybe confide with your group, figure out which custom fields may be a benefit for you guys, what they want to see endorsed right away, edit your account right here, and then create the sub-accounts because it's going to copy those presets for you, make it one step easier. And of course, if you have already created your sub-accounts and you're thinking, hey, those custom fields would be great, that's not a problem. You can always edit each one. Only take you a few moments. And again, if we do change anything, we'd simply hit Save right here. And that would save all of our changes. We can see that represented by this blue bar. Now, when we're talking about inventory, so let's say that I just created my sub-accounts for my users. The display and examinee custom fields are exactly as I want them. I want to go ahead and allocate those assets, subscriptions, and usages that I may have purchased. We're going to want to focus on the Inventory tab. Now, the Inventory tab itself is divided into 3 distinct tables, labeled Assets, so this first one right here, Subscriptions, and Usages. Now, starting with Assets, these are any digital manuals, user guides, or stimulus books that you may have purchased for one or multiple users, depending on how many assets you've purchased, that would allow them access to a digital version, again, of that assets, the user guide, manual, stimulus book. Now, assets themselves are actually allocated on a per-user basis. So if you did have, let's say, 10 individuals who wanted access to the BASC3 manual within Qglobal, you would need to purchase 10 manuals, assigning 1 manual to each individual. Now, when an individual would like to access that asset, that's going to be located in the resource library right here. And if there's time, I'll point that out for you guys. Make sure you know exactly how to find that. Otherwise, there's more information on it within your handout. Now, if we want to go ahead and actually manage one of these assets, let's say I want to go ahead and assign my BASC3 behavior intervention guide to a user. What I'm going to do is locate the action column right here at the far right. And within the row for that specific assessment, or that specific asset, I should say, like my BASC3 behavior intervention guide, I'm going to click on the Manage link within the action column. And in a moment or two, it's actually going to navigate me to the Manage My Assets page. I'm just going to give it another second or two, see if my internet would like to cooperate. There we go. All right. Now, the Manage My Assets page itself is divided into 2 distinct tables. Now, the top one is going to show us the purchased, allocated, and available inventory for the selected asset. So in this case, I selected my BASC3 behavior intervention guide. I have purchased 1. I have allocated 0, so the current one has not been yet assigned. And I have 1 available for assigning. Now, below, I'm going to see my user table, showing me all the users for the account that I selected. And again, as you might have remembered, I clicked on Jarrett's training account, which had 4 base users, so John, Jarrett, email, and sample. Now, if I want to go ahead and allocate this asset to an individual, I'm simply going to select the user, so maybe myself in this example, and click Allocate Selected. And what this will do is it will assign the asset to the individual, again, allowing them to access it in the resource library. Now, just because I'm allocating it to Jarrett at this time does not mean it's permanently fixed to that user. Let's say for whatever reason I assigned it to John Doe, and John Doe was to leave the district, or he was to leave the healthcare system for whatever reason. You can absolutely deallocate that asset and reallocate it to a new user. So if somebody leaves, it's not wasted money. You can always assign it to the individual's replacement. Now, if you do have sub-accounts within your structure and you did elect to manage inventory at the highest level, so again, at that main account level, you can even include your sub-account users to your table. And to do that, we'd simply locate this Include Sub-Accounts option right here, and we click on the little checkbox. And that's going to add all of my users to the account. So I can see that I have now 47 users within my users table, and I'd be able to select any of those users. And within this table itself, it lets me know their role, how they were added, as well as their user status, so if they're active or have been inactivated or disabled, and even their sub-account. So it really lets me know who's who and where they fall within my account. Now, a nice trick that I always like to mention to individuals when I'm doing a training with them is this little drop down right here, because it's actually a quick navigation tool to navigate between all your purchased assets. So for example, maybe I wanted to give or manage my GFTA3 Qglobal manual. I can click on that, and it's going to refresh the page, now showing me the Manage My Assets for the GFTA3 Qglobal manual. So you're not required to navigate back to the previous page, back to the Inventory tab, click on the Manage link for the next desired inventory type, and go back and forth. You can quickly transition from this page itself. Now, one last thing on assets, if you do have a lot of users on your account and just kind of scrolling through them isn't going to work for you, you can always search for the user by clicking on this search option right here. It'll allow you to search for the individual by their first name, last name, maybe even their username if you know that off the top of your head. So it makes it really easy to locate individuals within your account. All right, so with that in mind, I'm going to navigate to subscriptions now. And as a brief review, especially if we have any new Qglobal users, subscriptions would allow an individual to generate an unlimited number of reports using the manual entry delivery method for a 1, 3, or 5-year duration. Now, like assets, these are actually allocated on a per-user basis. So again, if you had 10 individuals who want WISC-5 score report unlimited scoring, you would need 10 subscriptions, 1 for each user. Now, when we are talking about managing subscriptions, this is going to be very similar to what we saw with assets just a few moments ago. So let's say I want to manage my BASC3 report usages, or my subscriptions right here. I'm going to locate the row and click on the Manage link in the Action column. And that's going to navigate me to the Manage My Subscriptions page. Now, unlike assets that simply show me the quantity purchased, quantity allocated, quantity available, I actually have this table right here that shows me all of the individual orders that I placed for the selected subscription type. So I can see right here for my BASC3, I have 2 distinct orders, as differentiated based on their start date and their end date. So that's why I have 2 different rows, and it's not just 40. They started at different times. Now, to allocate a subscription, very similar to the assets, but we want to make sure that we click on the radio button associated with the order that we would like to allocate. So let's say this 21 right here that's already started. I would then select an individual who does not already have that subscription allocated to them as indicated by a 0 in their allocations column. So let's say my sample user. I would click Allocate Selected. Now, doing so is going to assign the subscription to the individual, again, allowing them that unlimited scoring when they're using the paper protocol and unlimited scoring within Qglobal. Now, just like before, if we do have sub-accounts, we can click the Include Sub-Accounts option, and we'd be able to see all of our users right here within the table. Now, this top row right here, I do want to make note of that. And this order itself, you may notice that the start and end date are actually blank. And the reason for that is that this subscription hasn't started yet. And when you purchase a Qglobal subscription, this is how it's going to be entered into your account with a blank start and end date. Now, what this indicates is that as soon as you allocate at least 1 subscription from this order, it's going to prompt you to select your start date. And will expire the 1, 3, or 5 years after it was started based on your purchase duration. So for example, if I do want to allocate this, I would simply select it. Let's say I want to assign it to Content Carl right here. So I'm going to select the user and click Allocate Selected. And by allocating a subscription that hasn't started yet, we are going to see our set subscription start date window, prompting us to select when we'd want it to start. So you can have it start today, the day that we've allocated it, or you can change it as needed. So if you are looking for your budget next year and you still have some time left on your subscription, you can absolutely purchase now and be confident that it's not going to start until you allocate it. Otherwise, when we are confident that this is the date we would like it to start, we hit Confirm Date. And as soon as we hit the Confirm and Allocate, it would assign the subscription to the individual, and it does start it for all 20, so for the full order. It's always important to keep in mind. And finally, just like with assets, we even have the search option. So if you need to find a user, again, you have a lot of individuals, you can quickly find them using this feature. And again, we even have the quick navigation. That's going to be consistent on the assets, subscriptions, and usages. So we can quickly navigate from subscription to subscription, save you a lot of time. All right, now we're going to finish our talk on inventory with usages, the final inventory type. And usages are actually a bit different than assets and subscriptions. And the reason for that is that usages do not have to be allocated to a user in order for them to use it. Now, when usages are actually added to your account, they are actually shared equally with everybody. So what I mean by that is when these 25 BBHI2 progress report usages were added to my account, all 47 users on my account could use anywhere from 0 to all 25. So again, they're shared equally. It allows individuals to grab as needed. Now, for some organizations, that's fantastic. It just allows them to grab inventory as needed. But for some individuals, that's not the ideal option. So if we click Manage, we are able to actually manage these on a per user basis or even on a per sub-account basis. So below I do see my table right here indicating the selected inventory type. Again, quantity available, used, purchased. And the bottom one's going to show me my usage allocations table that is going to be divided by account allocation and user allocation. So this does allow me to allocate at the user level, just like assets and subscriptions, but I can even allocate at the account level, making sure that everybody within a sub-account itself has access to X amount. So let's go ahead and say that sample user right here, I want them to be able to have access to 5 usages. So that's all they need. What I can do is if I want to allocate on the user level, I find the user allocation column. I'm going to click on this edit icon right here as represented by the square with the pencil in it. So I'm going to click that, and it's going to provide a text field for me, allowing me to enter in the number of usages that I would like to be shared with this individual. So with the 5 right here, it indicates that sample user has access to 5 usages. And as they count down to 0, 0 would indicate that currently no usages are available for this user, or 0 are currently being shared with them. So that's always important to remember as well. Now, if I wanted to allocate to the account level, let's say that the Lewis School right here, I wanted all the users to have access to 15 usages. What I can do is find the account allocation column, click on the edit icon, and type in 15. And that would allow all users on this sub-account to have access to those 15 usages. So maybe you guys have a sub-account that contains all these social workers, and you only want them to have access to the Vineland 3, you could give them all the Vineland 3 usages. Or maybe the school psychs will only be using the BASC 3. You could give them all the BASC 3 usages. Makes it really flexible to manage usages as needed. Now, I mentioned it briefly for the sample user right here as it counts down. If we were to allocate 0 to either a user or a sub-account, again, that would indicate that we are not sharing any inventory of that type with the user, so it's restricting their access to it, so they're not able to do that. And as soon as we do enter in 0 and click that check mark, we'll see this window right here automatically filled in that to not share usage inventory from account allocation. So again, if you want to restrict access to a usage type, go ahead and type in 0. Now, the nice thing about usage allocations is that we do have this Reset All Allocations button that would reset all the allocations for that specific usage type. So for my BBHI2 progress report usages. So it's a great way of resetting without having to do it each and every time. Now, of course, we even have the quick navigation right here, so we can quickly transition from usage to usage. All right. So now I'm going to navigate back to the inventory tab just to kind of keep moving it along. And the last thing I want to talk about inventory, or at least on the inventory tab, is the Set Inventory Notifications link. Now, by default, users will receive an email when they have 5 or fewer usages remaining of a specific usage type, as well as when their subscriptions approach the 90 and 30-day expiration notice. And this is, by default, sent to the account owner. So on Jarrett's training, that would be me. So I would get an email letting me know that X number of subscriptions, and of course what they are approaching expiration, and these usage types have met their usage threshold. Now, you do have the ability to actually edit this. So if I want to change who receives the email, and of course that usage threshold, I can simply click on the Set Inventory Notifications link, I'm going to see my low inventory notification settings window. Now, working our way down, the first option is simply whether or not you want to receive the notifications at all. So if you are an individual that is frequently in the account, you're monitoring usage, you may not need to receive the email. So you could always deselect that option to not receive it. Otherwise, if you are receiving it, again, 5 is the default in which you get that email for low usages, but you can choose to make this as broad or narrow as needed. Now, additionally, you can select who to send or who would receive this email to. And again, by default, it's the account owner of the main account. So again, in this case, Jarrett's Training. However, if I would like additional individuals to receive it, whether or not they're a Qglobal user, so you could send it to maybe a assistant, billing department, whatever that may be, we can add their email as well by clicking in this box, adding a comma between names, between emails, and adding a second email address. So let's just say sampleuser@pearson.com. So now whenever this email would be sent out, I would receive it as well as sample user. So again, if multiple individuals need it, we can always add them. Now, after we made the changes, we're just going to click Save. We're going to save all of our changes right there. So again, you have the ability to change that as needed. If you're a larger organization consuming a lot of usages, you may want to increase that usage threshold up from 5, especially depending on how quickly it takes for your billing department to maybe send in a purchase order or approve the transaction. All right, so that's inventory in a nutshell. And again, there's a lot more information within your handout as well with screenshots. So let's go ahead and transition to the Users tab now. The Users tab itself is going to allow us to see all the user details for all the users added, whether or not it was by adding them to an existing account or whether or not they were that main contact of a sub-account, thereby adding them to your account structure. Now, by default, the Users tab is going to bring us to the Users view. And again, it's going to show us all the users for the account that we selected. But we can also opt to include sub-accounts to add those users as well. Expand this a bit to see everybody on the same page. Now, as mentioned, data is saved on a per-account basis. So again, if we only have that one user per account, they're only going to see their own data. But in some instances, we do want 1, 2, or maybe even 3 or 4 users on the same account, depending on who needs access to the already created profiles. So if you have a multidisciplinary team with maybe a school psychologist, a school social worker, where some are, maybe one's going to administer the Basque, the other the Vineland, you want all that information with the same profile, may not be a bad idea to have multiple users per the same sub-account so you can see that data freely and work with it as needed. So if we do want to add a user to an existing account, we're going to start on the Users tab and click on the New User button. Now, this window itself, so the Create Account User window, we're going to see looks very similar to that main contact section of the account details, or of that new account window. And it's going to prompt us to simply enter in the individual's first and last name, email address, and phone number. So again, we'd enter in that information just like with the main contact. But on the right-hand side, we are going to see a few differences, such as the account that they're being added to. So because I'm on the main account details, it added to the main account. If I wanted to add it to that John Demo account, I would have need to click on the John Demo account on the Manage Accounts to navigate to its account details page, and its name would appear right here. But below that, I do see the option of establishing a username for the individual. This is not required. So if you do not give them a username right here, when they do receive the welcome email prompting them to activate their login credentials, they would have the ability to create their own username. So that's always a great option, especially if individuals like to create their own. Now, below that, we are going to see the role. And by default, there are 4 system-generated roles within Qglobal. And when we're adding a user to an existing account, we're going to see 3 options. And that's going to be the account administrator, assessment administrator, and our data entry operator. So we would just need to select the appropriate role based on the access that we want them to have. So if I'd like another administrator on my account who can manage users, inventory, as well as manage assessments, I'm going to want the account administrator. If I only want the individual to have access or privileges pertaining to the assessment process, I'd select assessment administrator. And if I want an individual who can only kind of help with the assessment process but has no access to, or I should say no ability to generate reports, so they can create examinee profiles, assign assessments, administrate it, or start them on the assessment, data entry operator is the role that you want. Now, if they are going to be administering assessments, always go ahead and click the examiner option. That's just going to add them to the examiner list. After all that information has been added, we'd click Save. That would add them as a user to the users table, and again, automatically send them that welcome email, allowing them to activate their credentials and navigate into the system. Now, if for whatever reason they actually don't receive that welcome email, whether or not maybe their email address was spelled incorrectly, or a network spam junk filter grabbed it, or maybe they saw it was from Pearson and just outright deleted it. I've heard that a few times. You can actually resend the welcome email to them right on this page. And to do that, we'd simply locate the individual who has not activated their account, maybe my Wednesday account right here, and we'd click on their row to navigate to their user details page. So we're just going to click on it right there. And right here, we do see the option to resend the welcome email. So with just a quick click, that email is going to be sent to them, and I can usually count to about 2 seconds before it's actually in their inbox. So in real time, they receive it quick. They're able to navigate into the system. Now, if on this page you do notice that their email address is incorrect, we can edit it by clicking the Edit button, and that would allow you to change the user details for this individual. Again, maybe their user or their email address, phone number, spelling of their name, as needed. Now, a real quick tip to figure out who has and who hasn't activated their login is that as soon as they've activated, as soon as they can navigate into the system, they're going to need a username. Otherwise, there's no way to get in. So if we look at the users table and we notice that it's blank for the username column, we know that that user has not activated. So it's a really quick way to kind of scan through your account. Maybe you just added 10 users, and after a few days you want to see who's had a chance to log in. This is the perfect way to do it, because again, if they have no username, they haven't logged in. If you did create the username for them, that's going to make it a bit trickier, but we can just simply go ahead and click on it, maybe my JDoe demo right here. And if they have activated it, you would not see the resend welcome email. So again, with just a quick click, you can figure out exactly who has activated and who hasn't, and you can send that email. Now, while we're on this page, so again, while we're on the users page, you can actually create your own custom roles. So maybe one of those 4 system-generated roles really isn't what you're looking for. Because maybe you're looking for an individual like the data entry operator who does not have access to reports, so can't generate reports, look at results, but you do want them to be able to help manage the account. So maybe more of an assistant role where they can help manage inventory and users, but again, have no access to examinee data. You can actually create your own custom roles. And to do this, we'd simply click up here by the view, the user roles option, and we go ahead and click the new role button. And by clicking this button, we're able to give it a name. So maybe this is going to be my, we'll say assistant. We'll say assist. And you even have the option to individually select the roles that you'd like to give them. So maybe they can view the account, they can create sub-accounts, they can create account users and everything in between. Or you can even create, or you can copy the privileges from an already established role. Like maybe my account administrator, copy that, click the copy button, and it's going to auto-populate or auto-fill in all of the appropriate roles based on that base role. So I could go ahead and navigate down. Maybe I don't want them to manage the email templates for the remote on-screen administration. In terms of the examinee, let's see, they don't need to do group examinees, and so on. So I'd be able to tell them not to be able to generate reports. There we go. After that, I could save it. And that's going to save it to my list right here allowing me to assign that to an individual as needed. So I can see right here. So if I was to go back to the Users tab, and let's say my John Doe, I wanted to change, say my new user, let's say, what do I want to do? Let's do Content Carl right here. I can simply hit Edit, and then change the user's role to my new assistant role. So again, it allows you to do that really quick. Now, while we're still on the Users tab, the last thing I want to talk about, and again, this is a relatively new feature, so I always like to point it out, is that you can actually manage a user's inventory right on this page. So we don't have to go to the Inventory tab. We can create them, open up the user's detail page like we did, and click on this user's inventory link. And by clicking on this link, we're going to see the Inventory For page with the indicated user, as well as tables breaking down all the available or allocated inventory to them based on either the product, so like the BASC3, the Dial 4, or by inventory type. So I could see all of the usages, subscriptions, and assets that have been allocated to this user. So right there. Now, I can actually go one step further and actually modify this user's inventory by clicking on the Modify User Inventory button. And by doing this, give it a quick second to load, it's actually going to break down all the purchased inventory on my account in 3 distinct tables, similar to what we saw in the Inventory tab. So I do see my asset inventory, subscription, and I know it was quick, but my usage inventory as well. So as a basic rule of thumb, when we're managing inventory on the user level, what we're going to do is simply click on one of the available checkboxes, and we can see that they kind of pop in view if there is an inventory available. We'd simply select it, and that would assign that piece of inventory to the user as soon as we click the Save button. So assets, I just have to click one that does not indicate below it that all assets have been allocated. So this one right here has inventory available, as I was able to select it. Now, subscriptions are nearly identical to allocating an asset. We can see that right here with my BASC3. So if I want to allocate a BASC3 to an individual, I simply have to find one that has inventory available. So I can select my BASC3, and then I just want to go ahead and select the order, as represented by these indented rows. So for example, my BASC3 report right here, I can see I have a 5-year one that expires in September of 2020. So it was a 5-year subscription. Or I can even allocate this one that hasn't started. And by selecting it, I am going to see that same set subscription start date window I saw before. So all the same functionality that I saw before is going to be right here on the same page. Just going to cancel that quick. And again, if I decided not to allocate or deallocate from a user, I can simply click on the checkbox, and it's going to remove that subscription from them as soon as I hit that Save button. Now, if I do have a subscription with multiple rows or multiple different durations, start and end dates, allocating the subscription for the first time will populate it as the first available. So if I don't want to give this individual the 1 year, I prefer the 5-year, I can do that. But again, it just auto-select the first available subscription. Now, usages are similar, so they just take one more step. But by default, because usages are shared equally with everybody when they're added to the account, we are going to notice that all the usages are selected by default for this user. And again, if there was any restrictions, that would be reflected right here. So let's say I don't want them to have access to the BASC3. So let's say I don't want them to have the BASC, let's say the BASC2 as well as the Flex Monitor, BASC3, Support with Interventions. I can just deselect them, and that would act as if they had that 0 allocation that we talked about earlier. So 0 usages are being shared with that user. Now, if I only wanted to limit the number they could use, let's say my BBHI2 Standard Extended Report, we can see that by default 20 are currently being shared with them. So if I wanted to make sure they only had access to 5, I could click the Limit Inventory button and enter in 5. and that would act as if I had allocated 5 usages to this individual at the user level. So again, same functionality that we saw before. It's just doing a click here, a click there, instead of always hitting the edit button and entering in the number of usages. And again, if you just added 50 people to your account, going through the inventory tab makes a lot more sense. You're going to be able to allocate a lot more usages, subscriptions, and assets at once. This would just be on a per user basis. So maybe you're adding in one new user, maybe they're a replacement, new faculty, staff. This might be a better option for you. So again, after all changes have been made, click the Save button. You'll save all of our progress right here. And in a moment, navigate us right back to that previous page. So right back to my inventory page. Give it a quick of a head start. Let's start from the Manage Accounts link again. So again, we want to manage. We're simply going to click on it. And the last thing I want to talk about on the Manage Accounts link is going to be a relatively new feature, and that's the administrative reports. Now, the administrative reports, again, would simply allow you to generate a report that contains a history of all the reports generated using either your subscription or your usages. And the page itself is divided into these 2 separate categories. So our Generate Report tab, which is going to allow you to generate the reports themselves, as broken down by these rows, and the Reports Queue tab, which is going to allow you to generate the reports that you have submitted and are ready for download. So let's say I do want to generate both a usage and a subscription, so we can take a quick look to see what each of those looks like. I would simply go ahead and click on the Generate Report button for each row. You can see that it's successfully submitted as soon as I click on it. So I click on it, it's going to submit that for processing. And when it's ready for processing, what I'm going to do is click on the Reports Queue tab, and we're going to see all of the reports that I've submitted within the past 7 days. And that's how long they're going to be active. So we can see right here, I generated 2 reports yesterday, 7 days. After that, of course, there's going to be a lot of usage within your account. It really wouldn't be a good reflection, of what's been used and so on. So again, that's why we have the expiration date of 7 days. Now, when they are finished, I'm just going to refresh it quick. So now they're in progress. We're going to see that the download column contains links that say download. So we can click on these download links, and it's going to go ahead and download the report to the downloads folder of your computer. And because I'm using Google Chrome, we have this nice downloads bar right here, so it's going to be really easy to find those. I've actually gone ahead and pulled up both a subscription and a usage one right here, so I'm a little bit ahead of the game. I'm going to try to make this a bit bigger for you guys as well. There we go. So this is an example of a subscription history report. And each row within this, so we can see that we have a number of columns indicating the account name, as well as the user, so we can see a lot of me, as well as the date it was generated, the report name, so which inventory type we used, as well as the form name. So if BASC3, I can see that I did a lot of teacher and parent forms. I have some WISC-5s in here as well as the examinee ID and assessment ID. So if you wanted to, you could figure out exactly who each report pertains to in terms of your student patient population, and again, what they were assigned by whom. Now, each row, so for example, let's say this row 2 right here. This row indicates that I used my subscription to generate this specific report. So my BASC3 report subscription was used once to generate a BASC3 PRS child report. So if we were to scroll down, we can see that as a whole, all the subscriptions on my account have been used 35 times or 34 times. Now, because this is a .csv file format, which is an Excel-style spreadsheet, you can actually manipulate this as needed. So let's say I only wanted to figure out if my BASC3 report subscriptions were used. If that's the case, I could always select the column and organize it maybe in an ascending order, which will pull all my best reports, and again, here's all my BASC3s. So I can manipulate this table as needed to figure out how many reports have been used or subscription has been used, which is a great feature to figure out whether or not usages or subscriptions are a better fit for you guys financially. And again, you can just figure out who's using what. If there's a user who's not using their subscription very often, maybe those individual report usages would be a better fit for them. So again, we can see that all right here. And of course, you could delete rows, manipulate them a bit more by the user, whatever you need to do. Again, full access just like an Excel spreadsheet would allow you to do. Now, looking at the usage report, again, I'm going to try to make this a bit bigger for you guys. We're going to see that it looks nearly identical to that of the subscription one. So again, we have the same columns. So again, system ID, account name, number, the examiner or the individual who assigned the assessment, report name, form, and etc. The only difference here, of course, is because we're using individual report usages, each row indicates when I consumed one usage to generate one report. So by doing this, I could really figure out how many usages I used in X amount of time by maybe sorting my report name category. Let's do that. So I can sort that quick by ascending order. And then I could, remove everything else and then do a sort by time. So I could see how many individuals were reported at a certain time. Now, regardless of whether or not we're looking at the usage report or the subscription report, I always like to point out that these forms or these histories will not reflect any reports that have been regenerated or any multi-rater, progress, integrated report, any of those supplemental reports. The reason for that is that your inventory, your subscription or usages are only used the first time you generate a report. So because you're not using any inventory to regenerate a report or any of those group, multi-rater, progress, integrated reports, it's not using inventory, it will not be reflected on here. So each distinct row is the first time I generated a report for that individual, for that instance. So that's always important to keep in mind. Finally, you may have noticed that there's a lot of white space on some of these. Now, the reason why there is white space is that indicates that an examinee profile has been deleted. So it will still indicate the inventory type that was used, so like my BASC3 Reflex Monitor report, but because the individual has been removed from your account, they've been deleted, it is gone. So as soon as you delete an individual, an examinee, a student profile, it's gone from the system. So of course it will not be reflected in the report because that information is no longer available. However, because inventory was recorded, and that is recorded on your account, you can still see when inventory was used. You just can't see for who or what form it was, like if it was a parent-teacher form, things like that. So important to keep in mind. If you see blanks in terms of the user, things like that, chances are maybe the user was deleted, the examinee was deleted, anything in between. Because again, it is pulling from the system when it's processed. Okay, I do see that we're running a bit on time. We've got about 4 minutes left, and there's just a few things I want to talk about. And to do that, I'm going to navigate back to the home page. Now, if you guys attended the Qglobal Practitioner Best Practices webinar, we've done a couple times now, you guys know I'm a big fan of this Examinee Table right here, and the fact that I can actually customize, and users can actually customize this on a per login basis, on a per user basis. And with this in mind, because I did create my own custom fields, if I click on the little edit button right in the bottom left-hand corner, we are going to see that I can add those custom fields to my table. So if I do have it say school, grade, previous diagnosis, initial intake date, whatever that may be, so let's say I just add school and grade, when I save it, those columns are going to be added to my table. So right away I can get a bunch more information, again, depending on how I customized my account. Now, you can even search by these custom fields. So for example, if I wanted to search through my table right here, clicking the Include Sub-Accounts option to add all of the examinees within my account and all the sub-accounts to the table, I can click Search, and I can search for that individual based on their demographic information, which does include those 4 custom fields. So again, using those custom fields is going to be visible on the individual's examinee profile. And again, it does allow you to change the examinee history table, or I should just say the examinee table, and you can even search by it. So I could find all the individuals in the John Doe school who are in the 5th grade throughout my account. And it's going to show me all 11 records that fit my search. So again, it's a great way of kind of narrowing down, see what kind of activity is going on through your account. Now, again, that's a great way of seeing exactly who's done what. You can even search by the examiner or, again, the user who's logging in. Another feature that I always like to point out that not a lot of individuals are aware of is the account view. And that's accessed right up here. So by default, when you log in, if you're an administrator, it's going to show you the account that you've logged into, so the main account right here. However, if you click on it, we are going to see that we do have a window that jumps down, showing us a folder that we can expand, showing us all the sub-accounts that may be on your account. So for example, I could see the Brooks School. Here's my John Doe demo account I created earlier. And if I was to click on one of these, like let's say the Brooks School, it's actually going to refresh my view, showing me the account as if I had logged in as a user on the Brooks School. So I can just go see exactly what they've been doing just by a few clicks. So again, I could search for everybody that Terry Brooks had created, or I could just do a few quick clicks and allow me to see exactly what Terry Brooks would see if he signed in. So again, a great little feature that I'm assuming quite a few of you didn't know. All right, so with that in mind, I am actually going to stop sharing my screen. So I'm going to bring up ReadyTalk really quick. And we do have a minute or two left. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat right now. Otherwise, I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedule and attending the administrative webinar today. I'm really hoping that you learned something new, and maybe if you're an established user, a lot of this was great review for you. But if you're a new user, I hope you really got a lot of good information to help you manage your account right from the start. Now, when you are going ahead and leaving today's session, you will see a brief survey just asking you how we did. And we really do appreciate you, letting us know, because I do read through each and every comment and use that to make these sessions better the next time we do them. So whether or not it's content that we reviewed that you weren't sure of, you wish we would have done X and we didn't, or if you thought, we talked about too much, not enough detail, please let me know. I will absolutely reach out to you directly and answer any questions. So again, if we're not able to answer your question, let us know, and we'll answer those. And really quick, I do see two quick questions came in right at the same time. Will we post this? Yes, this will be posted on the Qglobal product website, so you will be able to see this, a recording of this, or maybe even a clean-cut recording, more of like a video, to allow you to review this at a later time. And we will be redoing this webinar in the future. Otherwise, I do see that we are on time. So again, thank you everybody for taking time out of your schedule. If you have any remaining questions, leave them in the chat box or the comments at the end with the survey, and I'll reach out to you directly. Thanks everybody. Hope to see you online.